9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All systems go.
You're listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by.
On the morning shift.
Anything
Could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
And good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. I'm glad to be here with you. Thankful that you're here with us. We're live on CKLU 96.7 FM on the radio, terrestrial radio. We're also streaming live at cklu.ca. Click on the Radio Player Canada app. You can stream us if you download it. You can take us with you and listen to us anywhere, anytime on your favorite device. We're also streaming live at facebook.com/Sudbury News. youtube.com/Sudbury News. So make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Follow. Mainly comment. We'll do our best to get your comments up on the screen for those watching, read for those listening. It's also found on demand. The show is on x.com/Sudbury News, Sudbury.news. Our news aggregator, just click on the Radio Player Canada, just click on the Sudbury News Talk tab on the top right of the page. We're also, going to be found on demand on Facebook and YouTube as well. Let's dive right in. We're going to start off with a little bit of weather, and then we'll be back with news headlines, your comments, and more right after this. All right. Currently it's 9 degrees out there. There is some mist. We have cloudy this morning, 70% chance of showers this afternoon, with a risk of thunderstorm late in the afternoon. The wind will be gusting up to 40 kilometers per hour. High of 20 today. Tonight, partly cloudy. Also a 70% chance of showers, changing to 30% chance of showers this evening. Risk of the thunderstorm early this evening. Hazy also, and winds gusting to 40 kilometers per hour. And low of 9 tonight, and then Thursday, mix of sun and cloud with a 30% chance of showers with a high of 17. Friday, mix of sun and cloud all the way through till Monday. Mix of sun and cloud, 17 on Friday, 21 Saturday, 24 Sunday, 25 on Monday. And then it's cloudy and 24 on Tuesday. I'll look at your satellite image. Let's just make this thing roll. Like that. There you go. It's just a change in all over the place. And so just a bunch of clouds over northern Ontario with a mix of precipitation in different areas at different times. And that's your Sudbury weather, brought to you by SudburyWeather.ca. We'll be back with news headlines, comments, and more right after this. Alrighty, thanks for sticking around, everybody. And I'm just going to pause this thing so it doesn't continue to go forever and ever. Amen. Quite a few people on this morning, as usual, and we're grateful for you, Northern Hillbilly on YouTube. Good morning to you, along with Brian. Good morning. Nana is on YouTube as well. Blessings, everyone. Heart emoji, exclamation point. Judy on Facebook. Good morning to you. Also, Denise. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Sudbury. That's Monique. And another Denise. Good morning, everyone. Stay safe and healthy. And Marianne. Good morning, everyone. From Barrie, liked and shared as usual. Belinda's good morning. Think for yourself, or others will think for you without thinking of you. Right? I'll say that again. Think for yourself, or others will think for you without thinking of you. That's right. Who loves you more than you? Who cares about your health more than you do? Who cares about your education more than you do? Who cares about your day-to-day happiness more than you do? Nobody. You do. And you should. And you need to look after that and make sure that, first of all, you're thinking for yourself, because you'll be thinking of yourself. And if you let others think for you, they won't be thinking of you and on your best behalf. Hazel, good morning to you. Prayer emoji, and much needed and much appreciated. Pat, good morning, people. Peace sign. Belinda, Christia Freeland stated that young Canadians will never own a house. They should accept modular homes. It's interesting. I guess they're just letting us know that we shouldn't live to a certain standard anymore. Shouldn't expect, something as you're greedy if you want a house to live in, right? Your own house. Who would think of something like that? And Denise, Canada is going Muslim. Wait till you see what happens on July the 1st. In Sudbury, the Muslims are coming. We didn't stand up. We didn't occupy our halls, and they will outnumber us soon. They're coming, and every day their numbers are growing. So good point there, right? So let's say a particular ethnicity, religious group, language, whatever, as we have this mass immigration, and a lot of people, they're all for it and it's great while it's happening. But in the end of the day, when there's a majority of people that are a certain religion, let's say it's Muslim, for example, like Denise is putting out there. So let's say the majority of Canadians are Muslim at a certain point. And it looks like the numbers, if they continue to go the same way that they are, and actually that won't be too long from now. So what happens when your country is mostly a certain religion? Does that change anything? Well, one could say, well, it was, right? It was Christianity for the longest time. And look how bad that went. Look how bad we had it. All these bad Christians running everything. So it'll just change. That's what I'm saying, right? It's just going to change. And how will it change? Look into the future. It is just a thing. It's not racist. There's nothing wrong against saying, imagine if your country changes the population so much where the majority belong to a certain religion or not, because that's exactly what's happening. How is that wrong? Right? So you just imagine what it's going to look like. And that is what's happening. And that's our future, right? The way things are going. If it's not stopped, and it's not looking like it's going to be stopped anytime soon. So that's our future. Estelle, good morning. Heart emoji, prayer emoji as well, much needed. David, mostly peaceful riots going on. And good morning, yes, in LA, the mostly peaceful riots. Many Democrat politicians saying they went there and they didn't see anything. Don't believe what you see on the news. They didn't see any violence. There's no reason to try and stop something that isn't even going on, right? Crazy news out there. It just depends what news you watch. Marianne, absolutely killing our culture. Well, for sure. There's no doubt about it. When you bring in a whole other culture, it's going to kill the culture that existed before. And good morning, Andrew. Thanks for being with us. And that's nothing to say. I think the other culture is wrong even. I may believe that. I might not believe that. But regardless of what I believe, you bring in a whole other culture into a culture that already exists, and you're going to actually decimate the culture that exists before, and it's going to be a new culture. So goodbye to this culture, whatever that is. And a lot of people are thankful for that because they've worked so hard to change it. And wait till you see what's going to come in place of it. You'll be very excited. Yeah, about the houses, Marianne says you'll never own a house for sure. Mostly peaceful, but a bit fiery. That's what Brian is saying. The protests or the riots, that is, peaceful riots in LA. Northern Hillbilly says, we brought the Muslims here. Who brought the Muslims there? Well, the government did. Our government, through their policies. I've met many a Muslim person who's very upstanding individual and very nice and kind individually. However, if you look possibly throughout the world at nations that predominantly have people belonging to that faith, it's not hard to see already what could become of our country here, right? It's not saying one thing is good or bad. It's just saying you can have a brain and use your eyes and ears and pay attention to countries that have predominantly people that belong to a certain belief structure and look how it's being run. Because it's almost like an experiment, a scientific experiment, where you put people in a certain area and see what happens. And so you can already. It's been done. It's not like we don't know what happens. So just look into mainly Muslim populated countries and see how it goes. It's done already. You don't have to speculate. Okay, it's also raining concrete in LA. Yes, for sure. That's Brian. And good morning, everyone. That's Liette from Collingwood. Hand clap emoji. Marianne says, if you come to Canada, support its culture, support the country you live in, or live in the country you support. And that's what's interesting about the riots, right, going on in LA. You have people waving their flag of origin in protest of something. But it's like, okay, well, you know what? If I'm in a certain country and I'm waving the Canadian flag, do we see that anywhere? Do we see Canadians in other countries waving our Canadian flag, saying, look, you need to be more Canadian, or you need to welcome Canadianness in your country? Has there ever been a Canadian who's gone to China and stood up in front of the government with a Canadian flag saying, you know, Canadians are demanding more rights here? You know, could that even happen? What would happen if an individual was to do that in, let's say, China? Elite's trying to incite a civil war. Well, I don't disagree with you on that one, Belinda. Brian says the news is downplaying a race war. Just have to listen to those speaking out in those riots. And they're organized too, right? So they come and deliver pallets of bricks. So who's delivering pallets of bricks for the protesters? And then there's hidden cameras that have caught people talking about, go get the supervisor and talk to the supervisor about getting more people down here and stuff like that. Well, since when do riots have supervisors? When does that happen? So it's very organized, and it's organized by people with money, people that want to disrupt things, and people who have agendas, political agendas. And they're paid rioters. And people who don't understand that already, it's a fact. So Marianne says, I was born Canadian, I'll die Canadian, and I will never comply to any culture but my own. Sheila says, morning from Quebec. Good morning to you, Sheila. They weaponize women and children to maximize the number of men. So that's Denise. Brian says, once you get 10% plus of a Muslim population, things begin to turn. Ask London, England, that would be. Yeah, look at Great Britain. The UK, it's like, I think there's a large percentage of the mayors of cities, including London, that are actually Muslim as well now, because they're a little bit ahead of us. And yes, Carney trying to start nuclear war with Russia. That's Marianne. Northern Hillbilly said, sad to say, we have hit rock bottom like a drug addict before they awake. The question is, will we survive? Estelle says our government has one agenda and Mark was selected, and look at all of the evil going on. Liberals playing the game. And it's so stupid on their parts. Again, that's Estelle. Brian says, when you have small gangs busting down doors, and many of them without protection, things get really bad. Denise says it's like when they're praying in the streets, and they do that in Muslim countries. They do that in the countries they're here to take over, essentially telling us to kiss their butt. Okay. Well, again, so obviously there's a little more grit in a lot of your comments. And if I was to translate that, I kind of already did. Again, all you have to do is look at countries that already have predominantly that particular faith in the country, and that has to do with how, and then it permeates into the government, and then the government runs the country based on the culture, and you just have all examples all over the world. You don't even have to speculate. You can just look at what's already happened. Try and go to another country and pull what's happening in Canada. LOL. That's true. Soros funded riots. That's Dan, and that's true. He's one of the people. There's more than just him. And Sheila, okay. Estelle says it's elites paying those protesters to have BS dividing us while government pushes bills in Parliament. Yes. And yeah, so it looks like everyone's pretty much on the same page here with how they feel about these particular things we're talking about at this particular time. It's something that you can't really hear on mainstream media anywhere, just talking openly, because you can't talk openly these days. You can't say something. You can't say what you actually think. You know, people are under that kind of feeling, like, unless you say exactly what the mainstream media does. Like I was at a family event the other day and someone said, oh, look at Trump, how stupid he is. And then everyone just right away yeah, Donald Trump, they should just take him and throw him in the ocean. You know, that kind of thing everyone feels emboldened to say. But anything other than that, you can't. You're not allowed. Okay, so with that, let's just switch on over to some local headlines coming from our local news aggregator, which we have CBC, Sudbury Star, Sudbury.com, and other news kind of aggregating into that website. So this is from CBC. Mayor and a hospital board CEO in small Northern Ontario town spar over cause of doctor shortages. So yeah, so there are like people without family doctors in the Matheson, Iroquois Falls, and Cochrane area are lighting up social media as the mayor of Cochrane and the CEO of the area's hospital board skirmish over why there's a shortage in the area. Well, it's government policy and the way our medical system is set up. Answered the question for you, no problem. So it's government and their policies and our overall healthcare system, which, dare I say it, is broken. Anyone in the healthcare system who doesn't acknowledge that, I don't know what's going on. And anyone using it, you know, a lot of people will be thankful when you go to the hospital and you receive care and you're actually, you know, you had an appendix burst and it's an emergency and you get rushed to the hospital and they're able to diagnose that and they're able to help you right away. Well, you're going to be thankful for the fact that we have doctors who can do that. And you're going to say, oh my goodness, I'm so grateful. And it's true. And that happens. But so many other people have really bad experiences. Wait times are so long, they don't get the help they need in the time they need it, and they end up in a worse condition because of it. It can be so much better with the technologies we have these days. There's no reason why our medical system has to be so bad, and so many people without doctors, long wait times. It's to the point of it's so bad. Yeah. Anyways, so while they bicker about why they don't have doctors in the north, I'll just put a blanket over that and say it's due to terrible policies and mismanagement and a system that was broke from the beginning, if you ask me. Universal health care is not something that I am a fan of. I'm just not. I'm sorry. And does privatized healthcare has its problems? Yes, it does. Less problems than socialized healthcare. Thank you very much. So there you go. Do they both have problems? Yes. Is one worse than the other? Yes. And the one we picked is worse. So now it's beginning to be shown to us many years later what happens. Like if you have if you're trying to have a straight line go to a destination, like you have a ruler and on a map, and you put the ruler going right to that destination from where you're beginning. So the ruler is very straight line. What happens if you just take that ruler and just move it just ever so slightly, just to say a nanomillimeter, if that's even a thing? Eventually, if you continue, you'll miss your mark. Like you won't reach your destination because you're off the path. So at first you think, oh no, we're on the path. We're eventually going to get to where we're going because we're going in the general direction that's right. But because it's even a little bit off, the further you go from the starting point, the more you're going to realize how wrong you were. And that's where we are with our healthcare system. We started back in the 70s, I guess, with socialized healthcare. And now we're seeing what happens at the end, like when we continue it and don't change course. It's just my opinion. And I think I'm allowed to have one. Okay, so this coming from, and I'll just get it up on the screen here. This is also from CBC. You definitely can't arrest your way out of this. Northern Ontario police not rushing to use the new powers they got to arrest homeless people, right? Police forces in Northern Ontario say they are not rushing to use the powers given to them under the province's Safer Municipalities Act to clear out homeless encampments and to tackle open drug use on public property. So there you see. Another way something in our society is broken, right? So government policy, police are there to enforce it. It's broke. Police are saying, no, we're not going to do this. So there's a discombobulation there. Not everyone's on the same page with what's going on. And that's because our society is starting to crumble to the point where this is what you start seeing. You start seeing people having to make these big decisions. You just can't have people living in tents all over your city, right? But what are you going to do in place of that? Well, Sudbury has a solution for that, and that's to change the zoning and make really small, townhouses. I mean, small square footage per person's unit and put that into townhouses. And so start building more row housing is what they say. It's just townhouses. Row housing to make affordable housing. So again, like Christopher Freeling was saying, young Canadians will never own a home, but they may own a row house or be able to rent a row house, right? That's our country. That's where we're going. Can't get a doctor. Got to live in a row house. And, or you have people living in tents all over your city. And I don't really see too many great solutions in the near distant horizon. And we have basically our population, and I'll say the word, being replaced. Like our population main religion is being replaced. Our population main ethnicity is being replaced. I saw a graph the other day of the amount of Europeans that are living in Canada. Let's say in the 70s was like 90% in Ontario. It's down to less than 50% now in Ontario. It's mostly just mass immigration and people from other countries that are the majority, becoming the majority in our country. So that changes a lot of things very quickly. And if you look at the countries of origin that the people are coming in from, and you look at our country is starting to look like the countries where they have come from, right? You would look at the country and go, wow, I'm really glad I live here because I like the idea of owning a little bit of land and having a house and a car and things are rather clean and it's rather law abiding and I feel rather safe here. But then, and I'm glad I don't live there, but then our country had the great idea to bring all the people from that country here. And now we're changing our laws. we're saying you don't really need a medical education from here. You can just get it from anywhere because we need doctors because we have too many people and we don't have houses. So we don't have these bylaws anymore. We're going to lower the bar for everything. And then eventually we're lowering the bar so much it becomes just like the country that we were glad we didn't live in the first place. And we were glad we lived here. But that country becomes this country. I hope I'm saying this in a way that's respectful for everyone, because that's my intent. My intent isn't to put anybody down or say anybody is better than anyone. But I am saying I believe the standard of living in this country has been one that's been envied by many people in the world, and that's why so many people want to come here. That's what I am saying. But now it's not going to be that anymore because we're lowering that bar so much to the point it's becoming the other countries. And so it's not an enviable place anymore. And that's sad on many levels. It's sad on many levels because we were a beacon of light to the world for so long. And our light is diminishing. Our light is dimming. And when you just become like everyone else and there's nothing that differentiates you, we want to be this big melting pot of just everything to everybody all the time, but you can't be. You can be something to some people some of the time, but you can't be everything to everyone all of the time. It just doesn't work. Okay, so to continue here's another CBC story. It looks like CBC Story's got the bulk of our coverage today. So tent caterpillars, you're going to see a lot of tent caterpillars around. They're saying not to worry. They're harmless. You'll probably have a lot of moths come the end of summer, but yeah, you'll notice a lot of tent caterpillars every so many years. It's the cycle, right? The road will get very greasy. Remember that when you're driving all over them? And it's really slippery when all the tent caterpillars are on the road. So just to continue our deep dive from talking about the UN's 17 sustainable goals they have and how our city is right in lockstep with them. And there would have been a meeting last night where we would have all raised our right hand to the square in solidarity with the UN to say we need to adopt every single UN goal they have. And it's all leading to their world, their utopia, right? And Sudbury's right in lockstep with that. And so just to educate Sudburyans on what we're going to be expecting on a global scale, national scale, and obviously municipal, we'll continue with the agenda. Their Vision, Your Future. It's a 2025 documentary.
After all the switches are turned on.
The critical switch would be the introduction of those digital IDs and central bank financial control. A world of zero trust.
Zero trust is based on a simple principle. Never trust, always verify.
Zero Trust is a protocol that is implemented by cybersecurity companies. And what it really means is we don't trust you, and you have to prove who you are all the time, 24/7. So think of it as going from a world of implicit allow to default deny. In tomorrow's world, once Zero Trust is implemented in, say, retail, everything will be behind plexiglass doors with a 3D camera, and it'll only be unlocked through your digital identity and facial recognition if you have the available carbon credits in your digital currency.
If you've reached the limit of your allowance, it could be access denied. This would apply to fuel, to travel, to meat and dairy products, to clothes and other consumer goods. Because everything in life could be valued by its carbon footprint. Even access to the internet could be denied.
So the new world of Zero Trust is really a world of locks. It's like an inverted prison. You are supposedly free to roam about, but everything you want to access is behind lock and key.
Most advances in science, including AI, bring great advantages to the world. They can enhance and improve human endeavour in almost every walk of life. But you don't have to be a scientist to see the flip side.
They're constantly monitored by facial recognition cameras that are able to instantly put a face to a name. Now, the Chinese are also ranked, given a mark out of a possible 950 points. For now, the number is a sort of bank credit rating, keeping track of everyone's spending habits.
It may seem scary, but it's just like that here. We're used to it, and anyway, we don't have a choice.
If you think this couldn't happen in the West, ask yourself why so many cameras, smart poles, and 5G networks are being installed in your neighbourhood. In London, the police are using facial recognition surveillance. Sainsbury's is already experimenting with AI.
Thank you for waiting. The cabinet will now be opened.
In UK railway stations, surveillance is being tested to collect travellers' data. And in Oxford, these barriers were installed by the council under its so-called 15-minute city plan. They were removed following protests. But look at what's replacing them in these quiet residential streets. As the tech companies are proud to tell us, the possibilities are endless.
We've developed the camera into a sensor. The camera does not only capture video, it can now start to count, measure, and detect. With deep learning capability, the camera is able to generate accurate and trustworthy data and send notifications in order to take action, all directly from the camera. And since our cameras have open technology, well, we can work with different analytic partners from all over the world and together do just about anything we want.
Note that they can do just about anything they want.
Digital technologies mainly have an analytical power. Now we go into a predictive power. But since the next step could be to go into prescriptive mode, which means you do not even have to have elections anymore, because we know what the result will be.
Ultimately, we're facing manipulation by the system, a world where instead of us using technology, technology is using us. But who's really pulling the strings? Banking and oil dynasties like Rothschild and Rockefeller inevitably get mentioned, as do the modern-day big tech masters, including the ubiquitous Bill Gates. David Hughes takes a wider view.
It's those who own the means of production, who are capable of magicking money out of thin air, who control the media, and all of the other means of production, which have now been weaponized against the rest of the global population.
Catherine Austin Fitz, the banking insider, adds a sinister thought.
If you know their name, they're not at the top.
Either way, it's a story of power, money, and manipulation by a small group of people who share common interests, and a belief that the world needs top-down control for maximum efficiency. As we'll see, it could result in the destruction of the farming industry in favour of laboratory foods, and a shortage of electricity because of the race to net zero.
Net zero means the impoverishment of ordinary people. It means fundamental changes to their lifestyles, and the politicians are not being honest with the people about it.
Surprisingly, the blueprint for transformation is woven into the United Nations Agenda 2030, ostensibly a vision for a better world.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I say again that taken together, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Paris Climate Agreement provide humanity with a master plan for a sustainable way of life on this planet.
New York City, late September 2024, the setting for the United Nations Summit of the Future, a gathering of member nations to reinforce and accelerate Agenda 2030 and its 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. The plan has a broad spectrum and is full of worthy ambition. But behind those deliberately bright and colourful boxes lies a darker theme, a shifting of influence and potentially power towards unelected world bodies. The strategy goes back well into the last century, and pressure is growing because the goals are far behind targets set at the grand relaunching in 2015.
17 inspiring Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. Our aim is clear, our mission is possible, and our destination is in our sight.
To end poverty and hunger, address inequality, protect our planet, and build a life of dignity for all.
It appears to be a noble and ambitious program for a perfect world. And who could argue with those aspirations? But critics insist the goals are not what they seem. Alex Newman is a journalist and broadcaster who's been investigating the issue for 15 years. He has his own way of interpreting the rhetoric.
You have to learn to speak what I call UNEs. You have to know what the terms mean if you want to truly understand what is being discussed. When they talk about peacekeeping forces or the peacekeeping role of the United Nations, they're actually talking about the war-making capabilities of the United Nations. So you have this Orwellian doublespeak. When they talk about transparency, more often than not, they're talking about eliminating your privacy. Human rights is another very, very good example. They make very clear in this document that your rights can be restricted under the guise of public order or morality or whatever the case may be. And so they're saying, here's your rights, but by the way, they're not really rights. We can revoke them at any time. The UN is filled with contradictions like this. Like, for example, when they talk about gender equality, right? A normal person in the Western world thinks gender equality means a woman has a right to earn money, to own property, to have all the rights and privileges that a man would have. When you look at the individuals who lead this movement within the UN, you're talking about radical feminists. You're talking about people who are very interested in dissolving the nuclear family. As you dig into these goals, it's very clear we're dealing with something far more nefarious. Once you look past the marketing slogans, the kind of warm and fuzzy, we're going to end hunger, which again is just window dressing, you realize that this is actually a blank check for totalitarian global control.
Author and campaigner, the late Rosa Koire, called out the plan more than a decade ago.
It is the biggest public relations scam in the history of the world. But it's far more than that. It's a blueprint. It is the action plan to inventory and control all land, all water, all minerals, all plants, all animals, all construction, all information, all energy, all means of production, and all human beings in the world.
What can be measured can be managed and ultimately monetized. In fact, a study at Yale University has calculated that the natural assets of the world are worth $5 quadrillion. Is this the basis of the new world monetary system? And is it the deep underlying reason for the United Nations project to rewild 50% of the Earth by 2050?
They talk a lot about biodiversity. They want
And we'll talk about the biodiversity plan tomorrow on the show. We'll continue it there. There's so many things in this documentary that they just plainly connect dots with that I know that people can then at least be educated on first of all, the goals, that there are 17 sustainable goals, SDGs, by the United Nations, and they sound great. And if they're just said, people will say, well, of course, these are great. When we have analysts and experts who unpack them and really know what's behind them, and then explain it, communicate it very, plainly to us, then at least we know what they're there for, and we can be educated, kind of like what news should be doing for people. But again, just really grateful for the creators of this. And as I was listening and watching this, I just thought, I used to wonder and ponder what the statement meant. For those who have ears to hear, let them hear. For those who have eyes to see, let them see. And I'm like, well, who doesn't have ears? Who doesn't have eyes? But come to realize they're out of a group of 10 people could be hearing the same thing. They all hear something different. Everyone hears something different. The same thing, but you can hear it differently. So it's like this. It's like some people will just refuse to hear what's really behind these goals. They just won't hear it. They hear it, but they don't hear it. See what I mean? So those who have ears to hear, let them hear. And let them understand. And it's plain. And we're just laying it out here for everyone. And shout out to some of our listeners who are just on terrestrial radio. Brian and Doris at Finlandia, thanks again for listening each and every day. Isabel Brown, one of our longest listeners, listening on the radio. Shout out to you as well. And all of y'all who are on each and every day. Some of you comment and some of you, we have conversations back and forth. Some of you are just listening and for some reason have never commented. I just want to say thank you for being here, and hope you have a wonderful Wednesday, a hump day in the week. And we'll be back same time, same place tomorrow on the same platforms, God willing. And remember to stay aware, like, share, take care, and stay tuned now for Earshot Daily on CKLU 96.7 FM. Ciao for now, everyone.